Imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for, and no religion too. Imagine all the people living life in peace. That is the great John Lennon. Imagine. Welcome to Industry Outlaws United. I'm your host, Brandon E. Brooks. We're back on Friday night here on the Indie Escape Network. And in the box next to me is the man with the Indie Escape plan, Mr. Joe Ridgely, back from his hiatus of sickness, bad sickness. So how are you feeling, Joe?
Damn you, COVID.
Yeah, I wasn't going to say it because I wasn't sure if it was out there but
hey, people get educated, do whatever you got to do. I mean, I had the freaking shot. I took all the precautions. I had the hand sanitizer in my pocket constantly. And guess what? She still got me.
It's gonna pretty much get all of us, and then you got the bad dose of it. But I'm glad you're back here, brother, and I appreciate you still staying behind the scenes the last couple shows and backing me up. But it's good to see your face up here, and good to have you back on. And I expect you to pop in tonight with our guest. You got a little extra time in the green room with him while I was putting some things together. But yeah, we're gonna have a cool show. I did a film scout today, which I literally just got back from about 20 minutes ago, and for a new film that I'm hoping to green light soon and talk about, but I won't do that yet. But it was a good day.
Come on.
It was a good day. I mean, there's a lot of good things coming up. Like I mentioned on the last show a couple weeks ago, I wrapped out on a movie called Figments of Freedom that's written, directed, and starring the great Mark Webber, which tonight's guest is very familiar with a film that he wrote and directed called Clover, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. And yeah, it was a great experience in upstate New York for that movie. And I'm actually acting in something this weekend that's actually a pretty cool project that I can't say much about, but I'll talk about when I'm able to. But things are looking pretty good, and I think I'm ready to have another cool show tonight with a great guest that I've been blessed to have met pretty much, I think, over the last maybe year and a half on the horror convention circuit. But he does obviously a lot more than horror. You'll get to know a lot about him tonight. So what about you, Joe? Is there any news for the network that you'd like to share?
Wow, yeah. I've actually been in talks with a new film festival down here in Florida, the Treasure Coast. So more details to come about that. Harlow's Haunt. Florida is just becoming, another film destination, which is really cool. Central Florida, Orlando, and Tampa. It's starting to blow up. And as you know, I've been working with Terry Jarrell a bit with Harlow's Haunt, doing some promoting and everything. So I'm excited about that. We're going to have a show on October 1st. We're going to have John Dugan from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, who's actually starring in the flick. And we're going to have Terry and Amy. So it should be cool.
Awesome. We'll keep an eye out for that. And shout out to all our other Indie Escape show brothers most of the nights of the week. Hopefully we add some new people to the network soon. Maybe some female blood in some of the upcoming podcasts. That would be dope to add to Daniela. But yes. get into it. Tonight's guest is an actor, filmmaker, and just an all-around dope dude that, like I said, I've gotten to meet over the last year and a half or so on the convention circuit. Without further ado, welcome to IOU, John Abrahams. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, Brandon? What's up, Joe?
Thanks
Pleasure
for joining
to
us.
have you on the network.
I'm happy to be here. Hey,
Yeah.
Thank you for that tribute video. That was awesome. No, I mean, really, that was
dude, man. When you do see it, like, hopefully you do shed a tear, like Mark almost did, and like Jeremy London and a couple other people, because I did slave over it for a few hours.
I know you did. I know you did. I saw the evidence.
Because it's not easy to find like high quality pictures of all you celebs online, so I kind of had to dig deep for some things, like even for some of the main movies, because I try to find some gems. But again, there's some technical issues, but we will definitely play it and we'll tag you in the future. But John, thank you for spending some of your Friday night with us. What I always do is I start at the start. I asked you where you were born and raised, and my first real question is, did your family and friends know from a young age that you were a born performer?
Okay, let's see. I'm born and raised in downtown New York City. I grew up in a neighborhood called Tribeca before it was Tribeca. And it was back then a sort of desolate, old warehouse neighborhood that really only had like wacky artists living in it, and not a lot of kids, and sort of at the feet of the Twin Towers and all that stuff. And now it's like Jay-Z and Beyonce's home, and all that stuff. And there might be a big film festival there. I'm not sure.
There might be a little one.
It might have like a Buick named after it or something. But yeah, when I was growing up there, it was very different, and I love that about it. I'm very proud to be from that neighborhood, and from downtown Manhattan back in the late 70s and early 80s. I don't want to date myself, but I just dated myself.
That's all good. Same boat.
Yes. So to answer your question, I don't know that like I necessarily showed signs of wanting to go that route, but my dad is a animation teacher for a number of years at the School of Visual Arts, and he also used to do music videos when I was a little kid, like sort of before MTV. A lot of early punk stuff, and really, really amazing work. Lou Reed videos, Lords of the New Church, the Dead Boys, the Flirts, a lot of that stuff. And so I was around it all the time. Like his animation studio was in our house, and he has two uncles, Joe Gray and Mac Gray. And Joe was Dean Martin's stunt double and a fight choreographer, taught Elvis how to stage fight. And he was,
nice.
Dean Martin's stunt double over his whole movie career. And Mac was sort of the Rat Pack's right-hand guy. He was his, like, every picture you see the Rat Pack, Mac's just cut off out of frame. And he was sort of a, I don't know what you want to call it, part-time fixer, Guy Friday kind of thing, like Man Friday, whatever. So my dad used to go out and visit his uncle when he was a teenager, and my dad consequently was in the background of a lot of classics. I mean, he's in the background of like all these Elvis movies and, all these Dean Martin films. And, my dad was even a slave in Planet of the Apes. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah. Nice job.
Yeah, exactly. Awesome. I love the real-time intel and backup. That's awesome. It's in my blood, and I kind of was headed towards I think a direction of like visual arts.
Oh, okay.
That's what I was like really into. I liked acting, but I really didn't like. I never crossed my mind that was something that I would do, as a profession. And then the door opened for me with the movie Kids, and you know, we can get more into that. But yeah, so to answer your question, it's in my blood, but I'm not sure. Like you know, people were like, he's gonna be an actor, you know, he's gonna be a director, you know, uncertain. I definitely was gonna be in the arts. I could tell you that. Like that's
so cinema wise, did you watch a lot of cinema growing up?
Oh yeah,
and what were some of your favorites and some of your favorite actors growing up?
Oh, okay. So as a result of my, you know, my dad's sort of fandom and, you know, working on the technical side in film and directing music videos and stuff, you know, I was really into horror films at an early age. In fact, my dad took me to see Creepshow when I was 5 years old when it came out. And I was traumatized, but also intrigued. And you know, I saw a lot of movies. Like my dad had VHS and Betamax, and like, you know, he would always have things. And yeah, so I watched a lot of movies, all kinds of movies. I love B movies. I love culty movies. And you know, when I was like 10 and 11, I just wanted to be Tom Savini. I wanted to do makeup effects. That's what I like got into art high school for. You know, I was like super into it. I used to go to the horror conventions, and like, you know, I met Tom Savini when I was 11 and he was super nice to me. But yeah, you know, favorite actors growing up, like I always appreciate the kind of weird character actors who are in tons of things, but you don't know their name, but you know their face and you know it brings you joy. And Dick Miller was definitely one of those people. You know, I think probably the first time I saw him was in Gremlins, but like, you know, then he shows up everywhere. And yeah, like people like that. I always loved, you know, the guy who's not in the movie a lot, but has a big presence.
Now, were you a good student? Were you a school kid, or were you more on the I can't wait to get out of school and do something different? Or which side of that spectrum were you on?
I definitely like excelled in art stuff at school and like did a lot of after school art programs and you know, like music and, you know, visual arts and whatever. But academically, you know, maybe some things I'm better at than others. You know, not a big math guy.
Me neither.
Yeah, not a big math guy.
So you mentioned kids a little bit ago. I had the privilege many years ago to come across actually have a conversation with Larry Clark after a screening of one of his films, What's Up Rockers, in Philly. And so how did that come about that Kids is a phenomenon, just the story behind it, that launched a lot of great talent, yourself included, and Rosario Dawson, Chloe Sevigny. That whole story is out there. But how did you get involved in such kind of a game-changing project at that time?
So like I said, I'm from downtown Manhattan, and you know, back then, I mean, maybe even still, Washington Square Park was like the hub for any kids that lived below, let's say, 23rd Street, right? East to west, like that's where you congregated. And you know, I was working in nightclubs at 15 years old in New York City, so I was like kind of more in the club scene than I was in the skate scene, but like everybody hung out in the park, right? You got like the skate crews, you got the club kids, you got the goths and everything else, right? And you know, my good friend Harold Hunter, rest in peace, who was in Kids, you know, he was sort of an amazing diplomat of downtown, and he was sort of like the liaison between all the crews and everything. And you know, I just got to know those guys a bit from hanging out in the park and just being a downtown kid. And I was into like improv at the time. I was taking improv after school at school, but like a, you know, extracurricular thing. And I really liked it, but like I wasn't assuming that it was going to progress to this career path or anything. I just another thing that sort of was creatively interesting to me, you know. And you know, what that like that spring or early summer, Larry and Harmony, peace to Larry and Harmony, Forever grateful to both of them for everything. You know, I wouldn't be talking to you right now if it wasn't for them. So I really do owe everything to them. They were just walking around, like going up to every downtown New York kid on the street and being like, hey, we're making a movie. Do you want to come in and read? You know, I mean, they got Rosario off her stoop on like, you know, in the Alphabet City. And like, she was just a 14-year-old girl hanging out on her stoop, you know, and now she's a Jedi.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, God bless her. I love it. It's so awesome to see that. It's amazing. But they were just pulling us all, and they had like these like group auditions, and everybody came in a room and read a scene together, and they would mix and match and sort of keep rotating you. And I went with my best friend, and he got a bigger part than I did. Originally, they were like, you know, he got like a speaking role, and originally they were like, hey, we want you to play the part of this kid in the club who's making out with two girls.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so I was like, great. Like, yes. That sounds awesome. And, you know, that was it. You know, they were like, okay, cool. We'll call you when you're going to work. And I went away to do like an art program in Vermont for the summer. And they called me while I was there, and they were like, hey, you know, there's a bigger role in the film. Would you like to play it? And I was like, well, if you buy me a bus ticket back from Vermont, sure. You know, like I just wanted to go to the city and hang out with my friends in the summer. And they were like laughing, you know, like, okay, sure, you know. And yeah, and so that was it. They sent me a bus ticket. I went down, and we started shooting, I think like mid-July or end of July in summer of '94.
Oh, okay. Oh,
And,
awesome.
And then, you know,
good experience.
Oh my God. I mean, you know, again, like, it completely changed the course of my life, you know, for the better. And, you know, I don't think any of us really knew.
Yeah.
We thought we were just making an art film and it was fun. And, you know, but none of us were professional actors at all. That was like a prerequisite. Right. And, you know, so we knew we were like, this was a cool thing, right? Because we knew about Larry and, you know, and obviously all that stuff, but none of us had any idea it would be the sensation that it became. And, you know, it was pretty wild. Like, you know, imagine herding cats. Like that is, you know, a bunch of kids, teenage kids who don't know anything about continuity, you know, and every time they said cut, like we would just wander off, and then they would have to be like, no, like you can't leave, you can't change, you got to stay here, you know, you can't go smoke weed behind a tree, and like, you know, you know.
So did this at this time, did that light the fire in you for it, or did it take the next project or the next project after that to kind of start to?
No, I don't think like I wasn't like, oh, well, now this is my ticket, and you know, I should give this a shot. I enjoyed it, and I was like, okay, like it's a fun, creative thing to do, but that's really where it lived and died for me. And then my improv teacher like was like, hey, there's this movie that's casting, and you know, I told them you should go in and meet them, and so she sent me Piece of Diane Yanarelli. I love her. I've put her in both of my movies, and she was my teacher, and she was the one who was like, you know, try this other thing. And so I went and tried that other thing and got the part. And then Kids became the sort of midnight sensation it did at Sundance that year.
Mm-hmm.
And an agent called me up and was like, hey, just saw you at Sundance in this movie, and I think maybe, you know, you should, like, you might have a good career. You know, are you interested in representation and all that stuff? And I was like, yeah, no, thanks. And I hung up on them. And then he called back and he was like, look, I'm not like a sleazeball. Like, I'm a real person. I work for a real company. And like, why don't you meet me in a crowded hotel lobby in New York, and like, we can talk. And I was like, okay, sure. And so I did. And, you know, he convinced me to like give it a shot. And then very quickly, I booked playing Sean Penn's brother in Dead Man Walking. And yeah, and it was on that I like kind of was like struck with the holy smokes, like this door has been opened for me in a world that definitely interests me. I don't know if it was in the acting capacity, but like I said, I've always grown up loving films and, you know, being interested in the technical side of making movies and stuff. And so that's where I was really struck with like, okay, I should be serious about this. And then I decided to defer for a year from college, and I was off and running, and I never went to college, and I just started working. Thank God, and, you know, here I am talking to you.
Talking to me. So to back up just a little bit. So were your folks, or like, well, I apologize if your structure is different, but did you have support from family in making that decision to go toward arts, or did they want you to do something more stable like we are here? So
yeah, I mean, you know, I think my dad was thrilled and is still thrilled, right? Like,
Okay.
you know, it's something he considers the bloodline of his family. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think, you know, he definitely is probably happier about it overall than even I am, you know. You know, my mom is a little more cautious and careful. I mean, she went to film school and, you know, started out on a life in working in film, behind the camera, not in front of the camera. And, you know, she was a little at first like, hey, like maybe go to school, maybe, you know, and then see if you still want to, you know, see if you could do both, whatever. And, you know, I didn't listen like most 17, 18-year-olds wouldn't. And, you know, she was probably right in retrospect, but, yeah, but she's always been so supportive. And like both my parents being artists are always supportive of me living a life as an artist. You know, none of them were, I never got the like, hey, you know, maybe you should be a lawyer or a doctor. You know, I did get the like, hey, the life of an artist is really hard, and it goes up and down, and like, are you sure? You know, and I'm happy that, you know, I got that.
That's dope. That's
really
dope.
Yeah.
So I didn't realize till like literally, I'm just being honest. I didn't realize till this week, like The Faculty is a film that I've always loved. I've always thought it's grossly underrated, even though it has some camp to it. But I didn't realize till this week that I've seen the movie many times, but you were the dude sitting on the bench and some of those funny little scenes that were happening around like the main quartet of actors. So was that just something that you like stumbled into like as a featured, or did you go from being like, how did that come about being in this Robert Rodriguez type film? And that's memorable. When I saw the still that's in the video, that was great, that you saw at the beginning of the show. That it was top notch. But again, how did that come about? Because again, that is when I thought about, I was like, oh, that's because again, I know you from a lot of this other stuff, but that's like one of those like little smaller things like in your maturation of your career that was really cool. So how did that come about?
So you remember when I said Dick Miller was like one of my, you know, faves and that sort of kind of actor. So like, much to the dismay of my representation over the years, you know, I've kind of like tried to model my career that way. Like, let me be, you know, let me be in a ton of things, you know, and be like, I don't know your name, but I know you from something that brought me joy, right? Like, to me, that's the best you could ask for. And a sort of comfortable existence in film, you know, like a Zelig, if you will. I don't know if you've seen that movie, but like, you know, pops up throughout time and history in like, you know, so I remember the audition for Faculty that I went in for Elijah Wood's role.
Oh, okay.
And it was with Robert Rodriguez in a hotel room in Manhattan somewhere. And, you know, I went in and I remember thinking like, there's no way they're going to hire me for this role. Like, I'm a little too old for it, you know, whatever, like, it's just not going to happen. And I was like, but I really like this movie. And of course, you know, it was 1998. Like, you know, I really wanted to work with Robert Rodriguez. And, you know, I had read the script. And so I was like, hey, I just want to say, like, if you don't like me for this role, can we curse on here?
Yeah.
I was like, could I play the fuck you boy? Mm-hmm. And he was like, Yeah, like he looked at me like, you're reading for like the lead of the role of the film and you're asking for like an extra role, basically, and I think he just like really liked that I didn't care and I like just wanted to be involved. And he was like, yeah, sure, and so, I don't know, the next day, 2 days later, they were like, yeah, Lucky boy, and I'm grateful for it for a lot of reasons. Primarily, though, I met one of my best friends who played the "fuck you" girl, Summer Phoenix, and
Okay.
that's like my sister, and I love her to death. And if it hadn't been for that movie, I wouldn't have the friendship
There
I
you
have.
go. There you
Yeah,
go.
so,
That's
yeah,
that's dope. That's dope.
yeah,
I'm glad I asked about that because again, I saw that and I was like, oh, that to me is. I mean, I think it's a great film, but those are memorable, iconic moments in the film that sometimes people forget, and I want people to remember. So, also
yeah,
another one of my favorite films too that I think doesn't get enough talked about is Boiler Room, and you played Jeff in that. How did this movie come to you? Because this too is a dope movie that has amazing a monologue by Ben Affleck and some great performances throughout. So tell us a
yeah.
little bit about that.
So that movie was casting, and it was like the buzzy kind of hot thing for all the
Yeah.
actors from 18 to 35 or whatever in town. And I went, and back then you used to go meet directors a lot, like before you would audition. Like it would be like, oh, go meet the director, and then and I love that system, and I wish it was still like that overall because I think it's a better way to do things. But anyway, I got sent to meet the director, and we really hit it off. And I was reading for Giovanni Ribisi's the lead, and I went down the line like over and over and over again. I think I was like one of the whatever top 5 choices,
Yeah.
let's say,
Mhm.
humbly. And like, obviously it ended up going to Giovanni, and he's the best. And, I can't think of anybody that would have been better. But, me and Ben hit it off, and he was like, hey, what about for Casino Jeff? And I was like, yeah, no problem. Like, of course, and that's how that came about. And I'm still friends with Ben. I'm about to work on a show he's directing with him. I don't want to say the name or
Of
anything yet,
course.
but
Of course.
yeah, but like we
But
still work.
congrats, though. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah,
'Cause,
yeah.
again, Ben is, I mean, fantastic actor, but again, just as amazing of a director, I think. I mean, not The Town and those films again are
No.
classics.
Ben Younger. Ben
Oh,
Younger.
Younger. My apologies.
Sorry.
My apologies.
Sorry. Let me just
But
clarify.
Ben Younger is a
Ben
fantastic
Younger.
director as well. Like,
Yes,
yes,
Ben Younger.
yes,
I didn't
yes.
meet Ben Affleck on Boiler
On
Room.
Boiler.
I'm not in the scenes he's in.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he did like I think it was like a 1-day shoot. He's in one
Oh,
scene.
for that scene, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yes, Ben Younger. Peace to Ben Younger.
Bad piece to Ben Younger. Yes. No, no
Yes.
disrespect
I would love to work
there.
with Ben Affleck. Let me just say that. Ben Affleck, if you're
Absolutely.
watching,
Ben Affleck, if you're watching, John's right here.
give me like one line in a movie, I'll be happy. But yeah.
So around 2000-ish, we were blessed with Scary Movie, which again to this day is one of the funniest things I've ever seen on film. So how does this movie come about, and how the hell was it to work with some of the amazing Wayans family?
Okay, so like I said, I'm from Tribeca, and
Yes.
I grew up around the corner from what ended up being the Miramax offices.
Yes.
And I was an actor out in New York, and like a lot of things at that time, like Dimension was just pumping stuff. I don't know if you know this, but Dimension's whole purpose was to fund the Miramax side. That's why Dimension did all the genre films, and that would finance English fiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Faculty, I think, was my first. I mean, obviously, Kids was Miramax, right?
Yeah.
But Faculty was like my first Dimension movie, and then I think they liked me, and they knew I was like a neighborhood kid, and like they ended up, they just took a liking to me, and I was in a movie called Texas Rangers.
Yeah.
That was the biggest budget they had spent on a film besides The English Patient at that point.
Oh.
Big Western. I call it Young Buns because
Was it that Steve Miner?
it's Steve Miner. Yeah,
Yeah,
directed Friday the 13th.
Friday the 13th. Yeah,
exactly. And so that was cool, and it was amazing to be on like a big, huge $60 million movie like that. I had not at that point been on anything like that, so and I was on set, and I had recently been in a movie called Outside Providence, which was also a Miramax film, and that was about to come out, and I was getting like a kind of good amount of attention for my role in that film. I think that like the execs at Miramax and Dimension like really liked my performance, and so they cornered me on the Texas Rangers set one day. Literally, they backed me into a corner, and they were like, "Hey, we need to talk to you." And I was like, "Okay." And they were like, "There's this movie, the Wayans brothers are doing it." And at the time it was called like Scream If You Know What I Did Last Halloween, I think is what it was called.
Wow.
Right? Because it was coming off the coattails of
Yeah.
Don't Drink Your Juice while being a menace to society in the
Yeah.
hood. And they were like, "We're doing this Wayans brothers movie, and the like one of the lead roles, nobody wants to do it, and we want you to do it. Would you be interested in doing it?" And I was like, literally backed into a corner, and I was like, "The Wayans brothers are doing it?" And they were like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Nobody wants to do it?" And they were like, it's been hard casting this role." And I was like, "Yes, fuck yes." I was like, "Sign me up right now." It's like the Wayans brothers are everything to me. I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker is literally one of my top 5 favorite films of all time.
A classic.
And it was at that point, like I went to see it in the theater. I was obsessed. The soundtrack, by KRS and BDP, and everything about it. I just loved it. And In Living Color, I grew up with it, and that was like my whole junior high school was In Living Color. That's it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, please, yes, please, I want to do it. Like, how do we do it?
So do you have to go and read for them, or how does this process go?
So they were like, no, they were like, would you, would you fly to LA and meet with Keenan? And again, I was like, I will pay you. I will pay you to fly to LA and meet Keenan, And I met with him, and and he was awesome, and I like fanboyed all over him and probably just stressed him a lot, and and there you go. And then so I ended up in the movie, and when I don't
how is it again, not to interrupt you, but how is the Wayans? Is it constant funny on the set every day, or is it a little more subdued than you would think?
No, it's constantly funny, and it's constantly collaborative, and it's constantly creative funny. That's the environment. It's like, everybody contribute, and everybody keep working and fine tuning, like as we're shooting,
Okay. So finding the truth and finding funny as you go, as opposed to having to stick exactly by a script or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, the script was there. And by that point, like there was a whole team of writers on their end that had come in and like, were constantly punching up jokes and all that stuff. And they, when we all got there, we had some rehearsal days, and they gave us like these sheets to fill out. And it was like a bunch of things about your character. What's your character's full name? What are some things your character's interested in? And then they took those and they incorporated things that we had put into the film, like my character's name is Bobby Prince Jr., and like, things like that. Like, the hot dog scene in the movie was something that came out of, a collaborative moment. And, they're just wonderful. And Keenan is just like the smartest, most ninja, amazing director / mogul person ever, and super kind.
That's cool.
And I love that family. I mean, I love that family. Yeah. Like, they do not disappoint as human beings. No. They've continued to like keep me working wherever they can throughout the years. I still DJ with Sean, a couple times a year. And, they did an animated show, and I was a voice on that. I've done some pilots with them. And, you know, you also had like Dave Sheridan and, you know, Sherry O'Terry and like all these comedy legends. And so, you know, comedians are constantly fine tuning, you know, I mean, so it is like just people being on top comedy form all the time.
Yeah, and it's again, shout out to the great Wayans. Again, I think it's been said many times, and Living Color was long before its time, and should still be on the air to this day, just like SNL. And I mean, and again, all the work that they put out too is just, it's always, again, I've never watched anything that I didn't bust a gut laughing. And again, they don't get the proper credit, in my opinion, for being legends, absolute legends in this business for decades. So
for decades, I mean, they are legendary. And
absolutely,
you know, the amount of money they've generated for the entertainment industry, you know, alone, they should be regarded as, you know, as kings and queens. You know,
absolutely, absolutely.
The remake of House of Wax, 2005, phenomenal film.
Yep. So House of Wax was a remake of the William Castle of Castle horror films fame, House of Wax from the 50s. And when I was growing up, there's a movie theater in New York called the Film Forum. It's still there. It's a great art house and sort of revival cinema. And every summer they would do a like 50s horror film, you know, sci-fi horror film festival. And they would show all the William Castle movies and all the, you know, all those great films. And I used to go, you know, every summer, and I loved it. And they had like, they would do all the gags that William Castle would do during his movies. Like during 13 Ghosts, William Castle used to fly ghosts through the audience at certain points in the film. And during Tingler, they had like buzzers on the bottom of people's seats. Every time the Tingler came on, people would get buzzed and, you know, things like that. Right. So like gimmicks to get people to get, you know, go see the films in the 50s. And so I got to see them all with those gimmicks, and, you know, I just loved them. And when House of Wax came around, you know, it was super exciting for me for that reason. And we shot that film in Australia. A lot of people don't know that. They think like we shot it in Louisiana or wherever else, but we shot that film in Australia, and they built that entire town in the middle of the jungle in Australia. And all those facades were dressed and actual, like, you know, businesses that you could walk into. Like the gas station was fully dressed, and the church was fully dressed with wax people, and super spooky and amazing. I've never worked on a horror film that had a, you know, $50 million plus budget. And, you know, I don't think that horror films need that to be great and to be scary. My personal favorite is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the original, and that's made on a shoestring budget, and it's just utterly terrifying and raw. But you know, the production value on a horror film with $50 million or more is something to behold. And on top of the, you know, the 2-block long town that they built, we were shooting at sound stages, and we had 3 sound stages. And each soundstage was fully built with sets and fully dressed, and everything was coated in wax. They had these giant cauldrons of paraffin wax, and they were, you know, constantly painting and coating everything in wax. And one night, a couple months into filming, the flame from the cauldron jumped up the wall, and the entirety of a fully dressed soundstage burned down to the ground, to the point that all that was left were the 4 I-beams, and those were melted to only be about 6 feet tall. That's it.
Holy crap.
So, you know, we were all in Australia, and I think they called us and they were like, there's been a fire. You know, we lost an entire soundstage, and it's going to take a couple weeks to rebuild those sets and blah, blah, blah. So they were like, you know, you've got a couple weeks off. And do you want to go home? Do you want to stay? Whatever you want. And I chose to stay. So I had like this sort of 2-week odyssey in Australia, and it was awesome. And obviously I'm not thankful for the fire, but that's how I spent my little time there, my unexpected time. And yeah, an amazing experience for somebody who's been a lifelong horror fan, and to get to work with some of those people, and really around like the production designers and all that stuff operating at that level was very interesting to me.
Well, ironically enough, you mentioned Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and our network was actually just part of a charity event that was held in Texas at the original house. And they had Alan Danziger was there. He was the van driver. And then who else was there? Ed was there, the hitchhiker.
Yeah,
and
awesome.
John Dugan was supposed to be there as well, but unfortunately he couldn't make it. But yeah, we were part of that event, which was amazing at the actual house.
That's
I
really
don't know.
cool.
I don't know if you ever visited there, but it's a
No.
restaurant with a bar on top now.
Interesting. Somebody told me that there's also the gas station is like a bar and maybe
A barbecue joint.
Barbecue joint, and they have like a
Yeah.
little mini convention there every year that I heard's pretty good. I would love to be a part of that. if
They
you're listening.
do. It's absolutely amazing. I've got, let's see, we have one of a few questions. I'm a huge fan of John's work. I can't imagine he was ever cocky. I'm sorry, and not even
that's
one
okay.
day of his life. John, can you tell us one of your favorite on-set stories?
Peace, Violet. Thank you. Favorite on-set stories. Let me see. Well, I did just say the House of Wax one was pretty crazy. Life on set is always pretty crazy. It's always full of things. I'm trying to think of like some sort of amazing anecdote. Well, I could tell you on Kids, like, again, we were like herding cats, and a lot of people in the movie were like pro skaters at the time, and I think in between filming days, like one of them went off and broke their arm, and then showed up to work the next day with a cast, like, how are you going to hide that for continuity and all that stuff, So that one sticks out for sure.
So do you have any stories on set? You just did 20 pages and you're exhausted, and any hallucinations or friggin' something? I mean, what was your longest day and what was the outcome?
Oh man.
Am I delving too deep?
No, definitely not. Okay. I mean, this is not necessarily specific to what you asked, but I was in this movie called They, which was a really good horror film produced by Wes Craven and directed by the man who directed the original Hitcher, which is also an amazing horror movie. I was doing a play in New York, and I got strep throat, and I went to the doctor, and they gave me all the pills and whatever, and then I had to go do, I think, reshoots on the movie They in Vancouver. And at the time, this goes back to me. Yes, I was in fact kind of cocky when I was a young man, and I was only going to Vancouver for a quick one. Then I had to be back in New York, and I literally had a 1970s bowling bag and a briefcase, and I was wearing a fur coat, and I was like, and I had been sick, so like I probably didn't look my best, right? I probably looked a bit vampire-ish, strung out, maybe, whatever. And I flew into Vancouver, and I've got a 70s bowling bag and a briefcase, and I'm wearing a fur coat, and customs was like, you're coming with us. They pulled me, and suspicion of drug smuggling. big surprise, and they strip searched me, and I'll never forget it. Thank you, Canada. That was awesome. Obviously, they let me go. But speaking of being like delirious and working on a movie and all that, that was a kind of harrowing experience, and I probably was like, am I hallucinating this by the end of that? Yeah.
I could not fathom that. Holy crap. Brandon, are you there, brother?
I am back. Can you gentlemen hear me?
Yes. Can you turn your
I'm on my phone. Like there's something's up with my internet for whatever reason. So I am on my phone, but as long as you guys can hear me, I have returned. So
turn your phone, please.
Don't worry. We held it down for you. Don't worry. I think we did a good job.
Awesome.
Okay. Talking about getting trippy.
All right, yeah. So I missed it. I was kind of tapped out, but again, we are kind of in time for my weekly one sentence or silence. So John, I don't know if you've seen the show before, but this is a weekly thing where I asked you a name of someone you've worked with, and you tell me a couple lines about them, good or bad. And if you stay silent, that means they suck.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to start off with Paris Hilton.
Paris Hilton is the homie. She is one of the smartest business people I have ever met.
Awesome. David Zucker.
Genius. What a pleasure to be around that guy. Like anybody my age, Airplane was a huge influence, and it was awesome to get to work with him.
Cool. Ellen DeGeneres.
Awesome. My experience with Ellen was always a nice, favorable one. I don't know what other people had. And that was a really fun experience for me. I've never worked on something in all these years that was more like showbiz than that show. Like every day you'd be backstage waiting to start taping, and it's like an elephant and an acrobat and all this stuff. And Ellen is one of the most powerful women in the world, and also one of the most powerful LGBTQ people in the world. And with that comes a whole lot of stuff that maybe a lot of people don't take into consideration. And life can be very scary on a daily basis when you're at that level. And my takeaway was always that if she was having a bad day, it was something to do with that and not because she's a bad person. My experience is what you see is what you get. The public persona matches the personal persona or the private persona. That's my experience.
It's a good experience there. I mean, that's good words. All right. Again, an actor that I hope to have on the show that I've always thought was really dope work-wise, Scott Caan.
Scott Caan is my brother. When we were younger, people used to mistake us for each other all the time. We didn't know each other. And then we met and we were like, whoa, it was like looking in a mirror. He's my brother, man. We're very close to this day. We live across the street from each other, and I'm with him and his family all the time. I literally can throw a rock and hit his window, and I love him very much.
Cool. All right, another fantastic actor who I just actually saw on Shark Tank. So he's doing quite well. Ashton Kutcher.
Ashton is the homie, super close with him. We did Texas Rangers together, and that's where we met first. And we really hit it off. And we shot a lot of that movie in the desert in Canada, if you can believe it. There's actually desert in Canada. And we stayed in trailers in the desert, at night together. And we just really bonded and became good buddies. And it's an interesting thing because at that time he wasn't a household name at all. I think that 70s show had only been on for a half a season. And it's just amazing to see that happen to people. And you knew it, he has that thing, he has that something, and you can just see it on people right away, so. Yeah.
Another underrated actress whose work I've always enjoyed, Erica Christensen.
That's my sister. She lives right up the block.
Oh, whoa.
I love her to death. I just saw her this morning. I drove by and honked my horn at her. That's the homie right there, and such a talented actress. And I've known her for 20 years, and just a beautiful person all around.
Wow, another person on the block. Wow. Okay, one of the greatest actors, I think, going today, one of my all-time favorites, Giovanni Ribisi.
Oh my God, what an amazingly talented guy. I've actually had the pleasure of not just knowing him, but working with him a couple times. And if anybody likes my stuff in Boiler Room, you like it because he's acting opposite me and he's so good. Straight up.
Blythe Danner.
Oh, love her. She doesn't live up the block. I haven't seen her in a number of years, but she was just lovely. And I think we were starting to get into Meet the Parents when you cut out, but yeah, she was just wonderful. And it sometimes on movies you get like, oh, this is going to be your movie mom and you're the movie son, and the people aren't like, they're not very open and giving, and it takes time to like develop that chemistry. And not the case with her. She was just so open and loving and like amazing, and she's just a wonderful person and an amazing actress.
Okay, absolutely, it's true.
Got a few
so I'm just going to piggyback. I have one last name after this one, but I'm going to piggyback on the Meet the Parents train. Robert De Niro.
Awesome, shy, but just a very warm, giving, kind human being. And I'm forever grateful that I got to work with him. When you are going to work with him, he's the final boss. You gotta he's like, you go through everybody else, they all sign off, and then you got to go meet Bob, and he's got to sign off. And he was awesome. I grew up across the street from him in Tribeca. And so,
a different block.
Yeah, right. On the East Coast. I'm on the West Coast now. And so I, from an early age, like I knew this guy was like an important artist. And like, I knew it more than I knew like, oh, he's a movie star. Like I knew this was like a respected artist. And I grew up across the street from the guy. Like everybody, idolizes Robert De Niro, and meeting your heroes can sometimes be very disappointing. And that was certainly not the case with Robert De Niro.
Awesome. Zac Efron.
Zac Efron is super cool. A lot of people think I'm related to him or mistake me for him or tell me I look like him on a daily basis, and I'll take it. That's a good looking, talented dude. I didn't really get to know him that well. We worked on a movie called We Are Your Friends together.
That's a cool little movie. Yeah. I love how it was shot. Yeah.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that know him, and I think he's a pretty good straight up guy. I have been a DJ for 20 something years. And I remember we met before they started shooting, and I was like, hey, you're playing a DJ. Like, if you want any help, here, holler at me. And he was very gracious and sweet about that. So
very cool. And I have a bonus name that was just text in because she's a huge fan of Supernatural. So I'm going to say it, Jared Padalecki.
Jared Padalecki is a freaking superstar. Somebody asked me this question recently on a panel at a con, and I remember, like, I think one of the first things we shot on House of Wax is the stuff with us in the car on our way. And there's like a lot of goofing around, and I sort of in character was like ad-libbing a whole bunch of stuff kind of going off on him. Mm-hmm. And he, I was busting his balls for sure. And he took it like a champ. I mean, he, I think he found it very amusing, and anybody could have been like, you're pissing me off, hey, like I'm drawing a line, and he was like super cool about it. I think I say something in the movie like about his He-Man haircut and like and whatever. Yeah, he was lovely. And
so you got through without silence. There you go. So to continue a little bit about House of Wax, I've always felt like that movie gets some unjust criticism because takes some flack, but I think it's well done. It's suspenseful. I think it just was a product of its time because Paris Hilton was so magnetic in the media and whatever. That, but again, I still enjoy it to this day. I enjoyed it when I watched it in the theater, and I watched it probably about 6 months ago, and it's still, to me, it still holds up. I mean, like the effects and everything. So why do you think? I mean, was it the Paris factor? Was it, or I mean, do you enjoy that movie just as much as I do, and a lot of fans do, or?
No, definitely. We talked a little bit about it while you were gone. Yeah, like I enjoy it as a fan. I'm a fan of the original House of Wax,
Yes.
and like I really think that like most of the time remakes suck, and especially remakes of horror films suck. I much prefer the original. Like just leave it at that. And I think House of Wax is an exception. I think it's a really good remake and reinvention of that. And yeah, it's got all those great sort of things like Paris Hilton and the camp and all that. But I think why that movie still holds up is because of Jama Colette Sarah, who directed it. He's amazing and just a real special talent, and I've been lucky to work with him again. I worked on a movie he did called Nonstop with Liam Neeson.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Underrated movie too. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. He's got Black Adam coming out. He directed Black Adam for DC, and he's just an amazing artist. So that's probably the legacy. And then, hey, the little guy named Joel Silver ain't half bad at producing movies.
No, not half bad at all. Not half bad at all. So to flip the script a little bit, what sets your soul on fire in regards to directing, from the filmmaker aspect? Everyone's has a different answer that double dips and kind of jumps from in front of the camera to behind it. So what does it for John to take on that huge responsibility?
What does it for me is, like I said, I have a vast interest in all of the arts, and I like acting, and I've done it for 28 years, but directing is sort of all encompassing of my interests in all the arts. When you direct a movie, you have a hand in the music, you have a hand in the production design, you have a hand in all those other things. And so it's very satiating for me creatively, because I have interests in music, and I have interests in visual arts, and I have interest in design and all those things. So, for me, it's just like wholly satisfying.
Yeah.
In that
now,
sense.
do you also write, correct?
I don't. I'm not a screenwriter.
Okay. But you've collaborated with writers, correct? I remember talking to you a bit. Yeah.
Yes. So, I can break story, but that's about the extent of it. I would love to write stuff, and someday I will. I just, I haven't like conquered that fear or distraction or whatever you want to call it, but I haven't, I haven't jumped into that feet first yet. But I break story, and I collaborate with a guy named Michael Testone, who wrote my first movie that I directed, All at Once, and my second movie that I directed, called Clover. Both of which I believe are on Tubi right now, and you all can go watch them.
Watch them, yes.
Yeah. So
tell us a little bit about, because I champion this movie quite a bit too, because I mean, for people that don't know about it, I mean, the first one I actually watched recently, and thumbs up there. But Clover is an interesting mix of genres that I love. I love that. I love the crime element, but it has it was sneaky with its humor that I wasn't really expecting. So, I mean, tell us a bit about that process. Obviously, you worked with a good friend of both of ours, Mark Webber, on it, and just an amazing cast: Chaz Palminteri, Tashina Arnold, Ron Perlman. So, but as far as from a story standpoint, where did this ideal come? Is this something that was long in the works in your head, or did this mature from something that came together relatively quick?
Right. So, like I said, I'm a big fan of cult movies and grew up watching them and loving them. And I'm also a very big John Cassavetes fan. And somewhere in there, I discovered a movie called Mikey and Nikki. which Elaine May directed, and it stars John Cassavetes and Peter Falk. And I love that film. And for years, I was like, I really want to, do something like that, like about this sort of, brothership or friendship that's like sort of based in like betrayal, or one of them's the fool, or they're both fools, or whatever. And, I started kicking it around with Mike Testone, and, he's also a fan of all kinds of movies. And it just grew from there, and I also like, there's something sort of Shakespearean about Mikey and Nikki. And I kind of wanted to like play with that. Like, I think Clover is sort of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead. If it was a mafia movie, like you have these two kind of fools whose life is being written and they have no idea. And so it was fun to play with that and homage to all those cult movies and all those throwback crime movies. And I sort of like tried to design the movie like a comic book or a graphic novel in a way too. So yeah.
So was it how was it directing, being in the directing chair and double dipping in front of the camera, but and directing actors the caliber of Chaz and Ron, and because that had to be, I mean, I know how like anxiety riddled I am with trying to do both for little parts. So how was that for you, doing both, playing both sides of the fence?
Yeah, so it's okay. So here's my answer. My answer is that for me, like directing and acting in it, it's not preferable, right? It's sort of can be out of necessity. It's not my desire at this point. I'd rather just direct something or just act in something, but it doesn't stress me out because I know as a director, that's at least one actor that will listen to me. Okay. So like, yeah. So, that's my feelings about it. And I don't really, I struggle with a million other things, but like, that's sort of just like, once the decision is made, it's like, there's no turning back. So I don't have time to sit there and get in my head about stuff. Like, you know what I mean? Like I can't be heady actor guy who's like trying to figure it out and directing at the same time. So there's got to be like a consistency, and you got to just go, because you're trying to make your days and you're trying to, do all that. And then, yeah, working with Chaz was amazing. And Ron Perlman was amazing. And Tashina, who I love, is amazing. And like, I've become friendly with her because of that film. And then, yeah, Mark Webber, man. I mean, me and Mark, we came up at the same time as actors and like used to be in auditions together all the time, and always knew each other, and I always respected him and I loved him. Like he's such a, I think he too is like a student of the kind of John Cassavetes school. And I just love his willingness to experiment and have things be jazz and not pop.
That's a good way to put it there. So for you, for you as John, outside of filmmaking and acting in this crazy entertainment business, do you have other hobbies that zen you outside of the craziness?
Literally, I'm an everyday meditation practice person. So yeah, literally and figuratively, yeah, that's a big deal for me. It changed my life, and yeah, that's my zen. I still have paths in visual arts and paths in music and all that stuff. So those kinds of like, I think in order to survive as an actor for so long, you just have to have other creative outlets, because it's and even more so as a director, like there's a long time between jobs. A lot of the time is not working, and if you don't have a creative outlet, you will literally lose your mind. So I have to like have things going on that aren't always like for mass consumption or for a dollar, and they're just to give me, a feeling of sense.
Yeah, yeah, I totally understand. My equilibrium is because of those things that I don't have to worry about, okay, I have to make a certain amount to pay bills or whatever. They just keep me centered. And it might be writing something that is different. It might be directing a little thing that's different or a music video or something like that. But
Yeah.
again, they're things that there's so, as you know, there's so much pressure to raise the budget of this film or to get this thing greenlit or whatever. We're in the process, my business partner and I, of going to AFM the first time, and that's just a
Nice.
monster and I mean, I'll pick your brain if you. I'm sure you've been like it's those
Yeah, yeah,
are
yeah,
things that are just there's so
yeah,
much to it to learn, and again, I've known a lot over the years just being a student of the game, but again, there's nothing like the first experience of anything. So
yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah, weekly question I ask everybody. One of the last few questions is, if you, and I'm going to ask you twofold. If you as an actor could act in any film, any budget, any budget range, what would it be? And the same question in regards to directing. If you could direct a film, any budget, blank check, what would it be?
And this is any film that's been made in the past.
No, any film upcoming, something that you
Oh,
could do, something that
yeah,
you could
yeah, yeah.
do. Like
Okay, I
there's been
see.
a million amazing answers, like something you could do. If you had a blank check, what would you act in and what would you direct?
I would love to do some sort of like period comedy caper kind of thing. I would love to play like, you know, the fool in like something like that. A mystery or whatever. And I mean old school comedy, like
Yeah.
um, and then, obviously like I would love to have been in anything with that John Cassavetes directed or, there something like it. And if I was going to direct anything, I have like a movie I'd like to make about different spiritual principles. So not religious things, but spiritual sort of ideas. And I don't think anybody would give anybody the money to make that movie, but but if it wasn't an issue, then that's the thing I would like to make. Yeah.
Oh, cool, cool. Good answers. Cool. So, what's next? What's upcoming for John? Like projects wise, acting, filmmaking, writing, producing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. I directed my third film, which is called Exploited, which came out a couple months ago. I think it's on demand right now, or it's
Okay.
probably moving to streaming soon. Maybe
Okay.
I'll get the Tubi trifecta, which would be awesome. But check it out. It's called Exploited,
Exploited.
and
Yes.
and that was my first foray into like a horror thriller kind of movie, and
Ooh, okay.
what's interesting about that film is it is a LGBTQ plus protagonist, and I don't think
Mhm.
you don't see a lot of horror thrillers like that, and horror films, thriller films. There is a big demographic that is LGBTQ plus, and I think we need to see more of that stuff with people who are LGBTQ plus as the protagonists, as the heroes, as
Mhm.
the whole cast, like whatever. So it was interesting to do work in that way on what is otherwise a conventional sort of horror thriller set in the webcam fetish world. You
Oh,
know, uh,
definitely look out for Exploited. Everybody watching.
Never Exploited. I opened a self-tape audition studio here in LA.
Okay.
So all you actors in LA or coming to LA, if you need to make self-tapes, come to us. We're called Stella Self-Tape, and that's stellaselftape.com. Check it out. And then I'm gonna act in something. I don't really want to say what it is
Yeah.
because I'm not sure I'm allowed to, but but yeah, I'm gonna act in something, TV show, and I've got 2 movies that I'm developing to direct, but,
Very cool. Well, good
that's,
luck there. Good luck there. What
as
about
well as
any
I do.
what about any cons? Like any coming up or?
Yeah, right. Thank you. So I've been doing the cons, and, I met you about a year ago.
No.
I've only been doing them for a little over a year, and I love it. Like I said, I used to go to cons when I was like 10 and 11. I went to the Fangoria horror
Yeah.
cons in New York, and it's amazing to get to do these things and be on the other side and like
Mhm.
meet the 10-year-old kids that were like me. And, I did Detroit a couple months ago, and I sat next to Tom Savini, who was my hero when I was 11. And, he's just the raddest dude. And like,
Yeah.
it's amazing to get that sort of cyclical thing and to meet people. And like, they may not know my name, but they like clearly have joy from something they remember me in. And like, that's just to me what it's all about. Like, what is better than that?
Totally. I mean, you've built a dope resume, man. Like, don't sell yourself short. But I get what you mean. Like, it might not be the Brad Pitt thing, but again, you have a resume in front of the camera and behind it to be proud of.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you. I'm definitely proud, and I'm definitely grateful. And it's just I started out talking about Dick Miller, and like I met Dick Miller at a con once when I was like 11 or 12 or 13, and I saw him and I ran up to him and I was like, "Hey, and he goes, Dick Miller, I'm in everything. How you doing?" And
Nice.
and I was like, wow, like that's awesome. And so now I kind of be a little bit, I'm working on it. So
Cool.
like another 150 movies and I'll be Dick Miller. But
all right. So the final question before Mr. Richley comes and asks you the final question is every week we ask each guest to leave us with some words of wisdom there's a lot of filmmakers, actors, aspiring actors, or film professionals that watch the show. So just leave us with some words of advice for the future and the current people that are looking for. Thank you, JW. Dick Miller is incredible, indeed. Thank you. But yeah, some words of wisdom and again, I always say good or bad because this is a harsh business, like you stated earlier, and many have stated on the show. But whatever you like to say for our audience, please.
So I think that the best way to approach anything is to always be teachable. Just because you've worked a lot, you still have so much to learn. And if you don't go into everything as a learning experience, you will be in big trouble. And having said that, like, if you're just starting out, do everything. Don't have judgment about it. Like, I don't care if it's your, second cousin in Arkansas's first short film, if they want you to be in it and contribute in some way, whether it's as an actor or as craft services, like you're going to learn something from that. I have a friend who says that like when he was starting out, he would do anything as long as it didn't cost him money. So like he would work on anything. And I still look at that. Like, I don't hold the movies I direct to be precious. Like, they're perfect. I think perfection will kill you. Like, everything is a learning thing. And I kind of look at it as like, hey, someone's paying for me to make thesis films. You know what I mean? And like, it's a learning experience. So that's my advice. That's my best advice, is do anything and everything. And you will learn something from each thing.
Great advice. And to piggyback that, something that Mark said that actually is exactly what a version of what you said is: don't wait for permission, just do it. It took me a while to get over that of just, it has to be this way, it has to be this amount of money and blah 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 and whatever, and you just got to go out there and do it. The people that succeed are the risk takers, the ones that just go for broke and go out there and make what they can make. It's great when you can have the 300,000 or 500,000 or $1 million or whatever plus to make a movie. But again, we've seen magic happen with smaller budgeted films, and we grew up on a lot of those that you mentioned, some of those cult classic films, or Hammer films or Corman films, or a lot of these films that I grew up in the 80s, like scouring the mom and pop video stores were made for $2 in Hollywood back then.
I mean, even things like Critters and Ghoulies that were like creature movies, like those were made on a lot of money, and they're so creative and they're so awesome. And like, yes, don't, if you are looking for perfection or the ultimate way, the only way to do something, you will never do it. Like, just go and do it by any means necessary. Get it out of you. There will be something else. There will be something else. There will be a million other things that come out of you because you're a creative person. So just get this one out of you. Don't hold it so precious. Make
Great,
it.
great advice. Great advice. Mr. Ridgely, any questions for this wonderful guest?
No, you already put me on the spot once today. You're gonna do it.
I appreciate you backing me up when I was having
No,
technical
what an
difficulties.
awesomely freaking awkward episode, John. I mean, you were amazing,
Well,
and you're
I'm
a good
nothing if
sport
not-
too.
I'm nothing if not awkward.
John, I appreciate your patience, man, and not just dipping out, man. You're a dope dude. You're a great creative, man.
Yeah,
I'll be
but
watching out
before-
for Exploited.
Yeah,
Before he
Definitely.
leaves,
check
we're-
out All at Once. Check out Clover. Both of them are on Tubi. And book a self-tape at stellaselftape.com. You might just end up working with me. You might just end up working with me in your session. Who knows? So
But whoa, wait a minute, John. Where can they find you on social media and follow up on your projects?
okay, so I'm at the real John Abrahams on Instagram, and that's about it for social media for me. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Facebook. That's where you can find me, and that's about it.
And
Yeah.
your upcoming projects are on IMDb, I'm assuming, or
They they either are or will be. So you can follow it there. Check out IMDb always. We love
Yes.
IMDb.
And Exploited, I will be checking out definitely this weekend, and like you said, the real John Abrahams, not the fake, because there probably is a fake one out there.
More than a few.
I can
there you
imagine.
go.
At the real John Abrahams. I don't have a blue check next to my name. I'm old. I don't know how to even get one. But
It's
yeah,
all good.
that's me.
It's the real one, not the fake
You'll know
one.
where to find me.
All
the one
right.
that looks like it's run by somebody who's in their 40s and not.
All right, John, again, thanks for spending some of your Friday night with us. We appreciate you. Keep up the great work, man. I look forward to chilling again at a con, and hopefully we can collaborate in the future, man. It'd be dope.
Absolutely. I'd love to, and I would love to work with you, and I always would love to work with Mark. And
Absolutely.
Thank
We're
you so
definitely
much.
going to do something. We were already putting our heads together, so we'll do something in the future, my friend. All right,
Thank you so
everybody.
much.
Thank you, everybody. John Abrahams. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend, my friend.
Thank
Peace.
you again. Good
Thank
night.
you, guys. Respect.
Respect.
Whoa, wrong button. Damn it. Who let this guy control this panel?
You just did like a zoom on me for respect.
Mr. Ridgely, thank you again for backing me up when I was
Hey,
having
brother.
tech difficulties.
I am a
That's
little
why
out
I'm
of
glad you're
practice.
back, because that's why I'm glad you're back from the near dead, because I was kind of spazzing a little bit behind the scenes when this computer, which is brand new, it was just acting up. So I appreciate you as always. Tell us a little bit about what's going on with the network this week, my friend, and I will share next week's guest after.
I actually don't know. I haven't been sent anything yet. I know CJ is hoping going to have a show on Monday, My Manic Mondays on Monday night, and then Gabe is going to have Symbolistic Cynicism. Cynicism. Yes, exactly.
Cynicism.
And then on Wednesday night, it is going to be JW and Rich, and they have Generation Movies. Exciting things happening in October with Tim.
Yes. Our brother Tim Melican, who thanks for watching tonight. Thank you, Violet Mendoza. I saw you had a question that I believe Mr. Ridgely gave to John while I was away. Thank you for watching. She's one of my best friends and one of my collaborators as well. And we're going to be doing something really cool soon that I will talk about in the near future. But yeah, again, Tim Melican has to come on himself at some point and talk about his really cool projects coming up. And I'm sure we're working on some of the graphics that we'll share with you. But again, next week, I have another really cool guest. I know there was a graphic that was made a long time ago. He actually was scheduled for a show a couple months ago, but he had a filming conflict. So he said he would definitely come on in the near future.
That's a beautiful thing. If anybody is scheduled for the show and they can go film, please, and then talk about it when you come back.
Yes, I know. It's just one more thing to talk about on the show as to why you stood us up. And and then after you made that beautiful promotional graphic. But again, next week on the show, Mr. Sharknado himself, Anthony Ferrante, will be on the show next week, and we will talk all things Sharknado and his other films and how he got into the business and anything else I decide to bring up to him. But next week, Anthony Ferrante, director, producer, filmmaker extraordinaire, and we will talk about his journey from his younger days up until being the king of shark movies, at least shark movies that are comedies. So we'll say that.
Cult classics.
Cult classics, yes. I mean, I have a story that I'll tell next week on the show with Anthony, but yeah, like we used to kind of chat a little bit back in the MySpace days, and again, it was before his rise up to prominence with those films. But yeah, it's cool to see. I dig anybody who just finds a niche and then runs with it all the way to the moon, and because again, that's what he did with that franchise, and again, he has a great career now because of it. So next week, Anthony Ferrante.
So JW is saying the secret of NIF for Generation Movie. Now, think about this. 7, 8 years old, maybe even 5 or 6, your parents are putting you in front of the TV with this animated movie that they think is like a young kid's movie. And,
Nope. That's like parents sitting their kids in front of Fritz the Cat. Like,
yeah, right?
Not exactly Heathcliff or Bugs Bunny. No, not at all. But again, that'll be a cool episode. Though JW and Rich do a great job on Generation Movies, as does Gabe, CJ, of course. Oh, and I actually thank you, David Madison, for that great comment earlier. I appreciate you.
Yes,
and obviously him, Scott, and you hold it down on Sunday nights. With the end of the night. So yeah, I'm not sure again if is there a show this Sunday night or
there is a show this Sunday night. Fashion designer Sue Wong is going to be on.
Very cool. Very cool. So yeah, we'll definitely tune into that. And I just wanted to repeat it one more time. Exploited on Tubi and other platforms. Check out John's new film, his third directorial film. So and also his first films that we mentioned earlier, Clover, and just all of his work, because again, he's a great artist, and we appreciate him coming on the network tonight.
And ladies and gentlemen, please follow us on Facebook, TikTok, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. I had to move back a couple of times to be sure to say. Also, October 1st, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to have a special show on Saturday night. It is going to be the premiere of the trailer of Harlow's Haunt. Also, we're going to have John Dugan. We're going to have Terry and Amy from the movie as well. And there's going to be a giveaway. There's going to be live Q&A. And it's bound to be a blast.
Yeah, absolutely. October 1st. Keep an eye on that. And I'm going to actually piggyback that with possibly the following week, or at least definitely 2 weeks after that. I will have possibly a special night episode that we will discuss. But we're Tim Dallin and I, along with Frankie Tartaglia, who were on a few weeks ago, the creative team from Not For Nothing, we will be dropping the trailer and the official poster for Not For Nothing on an episode of, like I said, whether a special episode or it may be an IOU. We'll work that out. But
yes,
en route to the film premiere, which will be at the end of the month in Philly, which will be a big red carpet gala that we'll have for the movie. That again, I produced with those gentlemen and some other awesome people, and it stars Mark Webber and Lauren Lavera and Michael McFadden and a whole host of great people. It came out amazing. I saw a final cut of it a couple weeks ago when I was in upstate New York on Webber's film, and I'm very proud of it. I'm very proud of the trailer because the trailer is a banger. So we're going to drop it on a show coming up in the near future, as well as the official poster. So stay tuned for information about that.
Oh, I am very excited about that.
Yes. All right. So again, thank you, Mr. Ridgely. Thank you for everybody who watched. We appreciate you. We're growing. Please like, subscribe, share. all of our social media links and everything. Just follow us out. And like I always say every week, believe in the power of yourself and the right others. Peace, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Somebody needs to tell this kid how to control this board here right now. Let's see. We'll do that.
There it is. Johnny!